Hello everyone, welcome to the Self-Knowledge Lectures. Today we're going to see the lecture number 35 of the Phase A, and we are going to be given some important explanations about family and attachments. And well, this lecture that comes very good in these holidays in which or that we understand that the purpose of these holidays is to be closer to our families. And we are going to be seeing today what the family is. We are going to be understanding the three types of family that exist. Well, I'm going to put you here the objectives here in the slides. So we are going to see what the family is, the misconceptions that we have about it. We are going to be learning what is the value that the family has in the esoteric work. We are going to learn about the three types of family that exist. And well, in relation to the misconceptions that we have about family, today we are going to be seeing that these misconceptions can originate an stagnation in the development of our inner work, and well, certain conflicts that we are also going to study in relation to the attachments or emotional dependence that we generate around people and around things. And that's emotional dependence or those attachments, we understand that is love, but it's not. And today we are going to be studying everything in relation to this topic. So let's start these explanations. And if you have any question, as always, remember that you can leave your questions there in the chat, and I will be gladly solving any concern that you have, or you can contact me through the page, okay? And well, the first thing that we must start by understanding to get into this topic is that there are three types of family. We only know one, but there are actually three types of family. The first one belongs to our external world, where we find our physical body and our personality, and that is our physical family. We can call it like that. There we find our father, our mother, brothers, our couple, children, uncles, grandparents, and so on. And well, the second family that we can find is the psychological one. Well, actually here it is in the third position, but let's say that this is the second one that we are going to study. And the psychological one belongs to our interior world, to our soul, our mind, or our energy. And that psychological family is made up of all our ego, our different ways of being, and there 97% of our essence is trapped. We are going to be developing each one of these families. I'm just mentioning them so you start understanding. And the third family is what we can call our real family, the real one. And this one belongs to our spirit, to our consciousness. We can say that this one belongs to the inner world of our interior world. So this family is made up right now of 3% of free consciousness that we all have, which is our spirit, to which we are going to be adding all the essences that we are going to be rescuing from the psychological prison with the work of the psychological death, as each of our psychological elements has a real and true part that is trapped inside. But well, let's go and take a closer look at each one of these families. So let's analyze the physical family. We know that undoubtedly we all need the physical body to be able to exist in this third dimension and do the work. As we know that us human beings, let's first talk why we need this physical body. This physical body is like an energy condenser, right? So to do this work of self-realization, we need to fill ourselves with ego. We need to pass through the process of evolution, maybe the involution one at some point. And at some point, we need to start awakening. We need to receive the knowledge. We need to start working ourselves, and we need to start setting free the consciousness that is trapped in the ego, that is coming with wisdom, and all of that essences and energy that we are rescuing and saving. We are going to start condensing that energy in our spine. So we start creating ourselves internally. So we start creating the existential bodies of the being. So we start like that word is hard for me. Or like raising, yeah, that is the word. Our levels of consciousness. Sorry, remember that English is not my main language. And well, what happens that we all need a physical body, but we human beings at birth, we are defenseless, right? And that is why we must have a mother who takes care of us until we can defend ourselves. And there we start like seeing the need and the importance of having a physical family. But we also know that due to the law of return, we all have the right to have 108 physical human bodies. So this implies that we must be born 108 times. So throughout our existences, we will have 108 mothers and 108 parents. Fathers. 108 parents, right? So if we stop for a moment to analyze this, if we start to investigate also in the astral plane our past lives, and we become aware of the reality of these that I'm explaining here, that in each existence that we have lived until now, we have had fathers, mothers, couples, children. And analyzing this, we can then ask ourselves if, for example, as in most cases, we are already in our existence 107 and 108, which of all those 108 mothers we have had is the real one? Which of those 108 dads we've had is the real one? Which of all the thousands of brothers we have had are the real ones? They have been like a lot. And the truth is that with the people of our physical family, we usually have certain karmic commitments, certain debts, let's call it like that, since, well, they have been a lot, right? And the truth is that we must like pay them for the different bodies that they have given to us. And for this reason, it is very common that we return in the seed of our descendants. So we must understand that our parents, our brothers, who are they are collaborating us, giving us this physical body as payment for another existence in which we gave them the opportunity to come to this physical manifestation, giving them a physical body. So we have like an ATM link. Yeah, but likewise, we will have children with whom we will pay for the physical bodies received. And another aspect of vital importance about the physical family, and perhaps the most important of all, is our partner, because you can see that we have parents, grandparents, sisters, brothers, and that we have had many of them, and that actually they are all what they really are is brothers to us, because all humanity is brothers to us. We all came from the same source. So what we tend to believe that the people in a family are the special ones, are the important ones, but actually we need to start seeing each one of them as brothers. And there is something or there is something of vital importance in our family, and that is our couple. And we know that for the reproduction of the species, it is necessary to find a partner of the opposite sex, right? But the most important than the reproduction of the species is the creation of those existential bodies of the being. And you know that this is done in sex. And for that, to do so, to create these bodies, we need an stable partner of the opposite sex. So, if you also analyze this, you see that the couple is very important since it is a brother or sister who is collaborating with us to achieve this great work of self realization, and we in turn are collaborating with him or her. And likewise, our children, we must know, are also brothers with whom we are collaborating by giving them the opportunity of having a physical existence, so they have also the opportunity to make their path towards self realization by giving them care, education, shelter, protection, and why not, giving them this knowledge. And we are going to do so until they can fend for themselves and make their own homes, right? But it happens that people born from the same mother are for us brothers and sisters. And we see people on the street as strangers because they were not born in our house. But we don't understand that they are all our brothers, the same. We need to start understanding that our home is not limited to what is inside the wall of our house, but is the whole planet. The planet Earth is actually our real home right now. And all the inhabitants of the planet are sparks that emanated from the same source, which is the sacred absolute sun. And we have come to this planet, we all, actually with the same purpose, which is to draw wisdom from this experience of duality. So our house is the planet, and our family are all the inhabitants of the planet. That is why that love that we feel for our children, for our parents, we must actually extend it to all humanity. I mean, we must start expanding that capacity for love that we seek to help all humanity. That is actually what an awakened master does. But the attachment that we create around the people who make up our physical family doesn't allow us to see and to understand that all human beings are brothers to each other and that there is no other link or title. And well, now let's see the psychological family. The inner family, the internal family that we have, is made up of elements that can be called selves or psychological defects. They are all that multiplicity of different ways of being that resides in our interior. We actually have selves of all models. We could synthesize them in the seven causal selves, which are sloth, greed, lust, pride, wrath, gluttony, and envy. But as Virgilio, the Mantuan poet, said, even if we had a plate of steel in 1,000 tongues, we wouldn't be able to fully enumerate them because they are so many. But it happens that each one of those psychological defects that we have in our interior have a certain percentage of our essence, of our divine spark, trapped, and is the one that gives them life. And they are formed and they have grown by the totality of energy that they have absorbed throughout our existence, throughout existence of the psychological defects. And that happens every time that we let the defect manifest in us. And they come to our energetic centers and they feed on our energy. We create these psychological defects with the sexual energy through the fornication, through the spilling of the sexual energy for pleasure, and through the impressions that we do not transform. When we receive an impression through any of our five senses and we don't practice psychological death, this is like this nestiness in our mind and start feeding on our energy, and then these defects are multiplied and multiplied. And every time that they come and manifest, that we react, we allow ourselves to have a wrong feeling, a wrong thinking, a wrong acting, a wrong talking. There we are actually feeding all of those psychological defects. And the biggest problem that the members of this family represents is that they have our consciousness trapped, and that they handled and misused the different energies of the centers of our machine, and hence the importance of being constantly practicing the self-observation so we can discover them in our mind, in our emotion, in our action, in our words, in our sex, and in all the tensions and sensations and the desires that we constantly feel, and be all the time eliminating them through the request to our Divine Mother, so we can start releasing the consciousness and the energy that is trapped inside each one of those psychological defects. This internal family, with the passage of time, became a legion, and now we have like many of them. First, they were just these 7 that you can see here, but now they are just a legion inside of us, because every time we let them manifest, they multiply and multiply. And well, here you can see how these defects were created. I actually was talking about that, about the misuse of our sexual energy and about the non-transformed impressions. And well, those defects are all of our vices, desires, mistakes, sufferings, pleasures, all of our reactions, etc. And they are dearer to us than the physical children themselves. They are dearer to us than the physical family, since we can see that we more easily sacrifice the physical or the psychological integrity of our relatives than deny ourselves our defects. We see how by feeding a vice, people are capable of leaving their children without food, for example, or how by defending their pride, someone is capable of killing someone, even their very partner, or losing the couple, for example, just because of pride. Or we can see how we prefer to mistreat or humiliate a child rather than refuse to react according to our anger, rather than refuse to feed our violent or our bad-tempered defects. Then we see how not only we don't deny our defects, but rather we defend them and we feed them at will, and hence the attachment that we have for them. You are going to see, and you are going to verify it when you advance in the work of the psychological death, how attached you are to your psychological defects, how hard it is for a person to really decide to make a radical change in a psychological defects. How difficult it is to refuse to feed your pride, to defend your pride. How difficult it is to refuse your laziness. How difficult it is refuse your greed. How difficult it is to refuse your anger, to your lust. So there you can see how attached we are to our internal family, which are our psychological defects. But now, let's analyze the real family. We call it the true family or the real family because it has always existed and will always exist. And it is our spirit, it is our inner being, sorry. And it is, as I was saying, like the inner world of our of our internal world, and it is made up of many parts, and all of them are actually unfoldings of our Father. God as Father represents wisdom, and God as Mother, which is an unfolding of the Father, represents our essence, represents our raw material, our creative energy of the Holy Spirit, and represents our love. And God as Son, which is like another unfolding of our Father, it represents justice, and it is our psychological trainer. It is the giver of light and fire. Light is wisdom and fire is love. And well, these three primary forces, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, also unfold within us into another three forces, which are Atman, which is the intimate in ourselves, which is the warrior, which is, and Bodhi, which is our divine soul, which is the Valkyrie, and Manas, which is the Christic will in us, is our human soul, and it represents the word. And well, there are also many other parts of our being, like for example the inner Christ or the 12 apostles that are actually, you can see them in the Bible, for example, or in any ancient books, and all those characters that you see there are actually representing realities in our inner world, are actually parts of our being. When you start consciously unfolding yourselves to your interior world, you are going to start meeting these persons. When you unfold yourself to the astral plane, to your interior world, you see your psychological defects as persons or as animals, and what gives them life is the essence, the divine essence that they have trapped. But also you can get to meet your inner Father, you can get to meet your inner Mother that are parts of your spirit, and you can see them as persons. Actually, you can see them as they can show to you with the appearance of your physical parents, but are actually your real family, the father and the mother, for example. And when you start working on the psychological death and you start liberating the essences, you are going to start meaning another parts of your being that are also coming to guide you, that are also coming to give you wisdom, to make you recall things of your very purpose on this existence, and so on. And what happens to the extent that we work on the three factors for the consciousness revolution, and we are advancing in this work, then the integration of the different parts of our being begins. And we experience that all those sparks which are currently trapped in the legion are released and start being integrated, and we start like achieving the sacred individuality, since in the end all of them, all the parts of our being, will become a unit. And there, when we get to be just one, we are going to have 100% of our consciousness awakened, and we are going to be a conscious individual. But it's like a conscious superior, how can I say that? Let me translate it in my head. It's like a perfect multiple unit. That is a self-realized being. Okay? And well, that is all that I want to explain to you in relation to the three types of family. Now let's see this attachment issue. So let's see what we are attached to. Why do we think that being attached is being in love? And what are our attachments based on? Because that is very important. So first of all, let's study a little about what is attachment. And well, attachment is like like an affective bond that extends in time, like that emotional bond that we create around things and around people. Like for example, like the bond that a child creates in relation to his favorite toy, right? And you can remember that we didn't want anyone else to play with that toy, and we cried if we lost them. The same. And so we were creating effective bonds towards everyone and towards everything that generates us pleasure, and towards everything that we call mine. So we created an attachment to our mom, our dad, our house, our money, our couple, etc. And we believe that what we feel towards those people or towards things is love. But it is not. It is not love, because that we feel lead us to suffering. And true love never leads us to suffer, because true love is a virtue of consciousness. When someone is attached, they always end up suffering. Attachment is always related to suffering. If I'm attached to something, I suffer when I lose it, right? And since we have that inner emptiness due to the lack of contact with our inner being and with our internal family, we are unhappy. Yeah, and we seek to cling on people, become attached to people and to material things in order to create that false happiness that actually lasts only as long as the relationship lasts, or until that person lives. Because when that person dies, for example, or lives, there we suffer. So we become attached to people, but we also become attached to things. So we become attached, for example, to all the comforts that things give us, and that attachment to things and to people is what prevents us from seeing the reality of things. It don't allow us to understand the inconsequential and the transient that are the physical things, and how by attaching to them we lock ourselves in, or hinder our ability to ascend, and we they end up like tying us down. But you are going to see that all attachments have their origin in fear. If you start reflecting on each of your attachments, you're going to find fear behind. So we become attached to all things, and then we live in hell, in the torture of fear of losing them. We are afraid of losing our material possessions, afraid of losing our partner, afraid of that those that we love will die, because we understand and accept the reality of life and death as it is presented to our sensory perceptions, but we don't understand what is behind. So we don't understand how fleeting the existence is, and we don't really know the reality of death. That death doesn't exist at all. And a father or mother, you can see that is attached to their son, and even if the son has grown up, or daughter, they continue to interfere in his life and want to manipulate him or force him to do what they want, study what they want, or what they think is correct. They are in constant fear that something will happen to the son, and for these attachments, actually all kinds of unhealthy and toxic relations are created. And when we manage to understand that every attachment has a fear behind it, and it is a psychological defect that is generating that fear, um, for fear of losing, obviously, what is generating that defect, a pleasure, a comfort, or a security, then we start like reflecting on what is the fear behind the attachment, what is the defect behind that fear, and we start eliminating them with the psychological death, and we start freeing ourselves from that fear, from that attachment, and then from that work we start rescuing the true capacity to love, that is based on respect and that is based on freedom. So we can right now think that we know what is love, that we love, but it is not like that. Only when we start doing a conscious work on all the attachments that we have, um, on what is there behind, what is the fear behind. Like, for example, I'm attached to my mother. Why? Because the mere fact of imagining that she dies makes me suffer. And I think I love her. But if I actually reflect in who is the one who suffers there, I will discover that if, for example, my mother dies, then I will know, I will not, I will no longer have someone to help me in some way, for example, financially, or yeah, for example, in that case, I can discover that it's my greedy self that it is the one causing the fear and is the one behind that attachment. Or I discover that if my mother dies, I'm going to suffer because I'm no longer going to have someone to clean my house or to make me food, for example. And then I discover that it's my lazy self, the one behind that fear, the one causing that attachment. And actually, you can do that with your couple, with your children, with your work, and with material things because it is all the same. There is a fear behind that supposed love. And behind that fear is a psychological defect that there is the one that is feeling that fear. If you get to discover that and if you get to eliminate it, then you are going to start really loving people without fear, without interest, without expecting something in return from that people. And that way you are going to be like experiencing what the true love is. Okay, and well, the issue of attachment is actually terrible. So if we like reflect on this, you see that it ends up delaying and even stagnating the possibility of self-realization if we don't understand it. So if we don't understand it, sorry. So you see that a man and a woman get together, and the first thing that they do is that they get a roof, and then they begin to fill it with furniture, and then they make roots there. And later come the children, the properties, the goods, and thousands of other nonsense. And we stick to all the comforts, and we suffer with the thought of losing them. We worry about what our life would be like without those things. And we start like feeling ourselves in things and in people. And we become accustomed to them and we attach to them. So we don't want to be discomfort. We feel that these things have cost us a lot of work. We think that being without them would be like going backwards, and we get very concerned about what others would say if we lose our things, what others would think about us, etc. And we start becoming tied to all the things. and we feel owners of all of that. We feel owners of our children, of our wife, of our husband, and this prevents us from seeing the reality of things, which is the passing uh, of all things and of all circumstances in our life. If we don't work with all the attachments that we currently have, then will come a time when that attachment will be heavier than the inner work, as you can see here. And it's going to stagnate you in this path. It is necessary, totally necessary, to understand the conflict that exists with the family and attachments, to have it very clear, very well understood, so as not get stuck in our inner work because of these situations. If we were aware that every time that we buy one more decoration for the house, we divide and fractionate our love, and then when we are seeking self-realization, we are going to be stagnated because of those attachments. When we are seeking for self-realization, what we are doing is that we are seeking to integrate love. And if we get to understand that, so that we learn not to attach to things, we wouldn't need to throw away the house or get rid of things. No, that is not the point. The thing is to understand why we want it in the way we want it, why we suffer if we lose them, and get rid of all of those internal situations and fears. And in that way, if something is broken, or if we lose something or someone in some way, then we are going to let it go. Then we are going to thank for its existence, and let it go, and understand the reality of all things. And we are going to be free. People is going to be free, and we are not going to be attached. If we manage to do it with people, with family, with material things, we will not need to divest ourselves of the family. And well, another thing that is important to understand is that when we are working on ourselves in the inner world, we must go through certain trials. And these trials are either pass or fail. And if one is too attached to things, to people, or to our psychological defects, we are going to be usually failing these trials. And these trials, these 4 trials, as you are seeing here, the trials of air, fire, water, and earth. Let me see. Air, fire, water, and earth. Yes. They are like constantly. They are putting these trials to us incessantly, because with these trials we like get to prove the inner work that we are doing. And no one would pass the trials of air if they have attachments. So every time that you are internally thrown from a high, cliff, mountain, or whatever, or through a window into an abyss, there you are living internally in the astral plane and air trial. And if you have attachments, you are going to be screaming, and that scream is, representing that, the attachment. Attachment to your physical body, attachment to this, attachment to that, to your child, to things, etc. And the masters make us see it internally by launching us from above, and then you feel the terror of losing and you scream. And that way you fail the trials of air. If at that point you make yourself conscious that you are in a trial, that you are in the astral plane, and you start flying, then that means that you are working very well with your attachments, and that is why you didn't scream, you didn't desperate. That is the trial of air, and is totally related with the attachments. And well, Actually, if we understand this topic, we can get the work done in one lifetime. Many people, many of us have received this knowledge in past existence. And you are going to find out how many times you abandoned the work in previous lives because of the attachments to things, to people, or to your own psychological defects. Let's make the work to, yeah, to make a difference in this one, okay? And well, we must know that family is a duty, it's a must, but we must know how far the duties and rights within the family go in order to consciously advance in the integration of a real family and in the disintegration of our psychological family. And well, people, this has been today's lecture. And well, as always, I will invite you to the next one that we are going to be seeing. Well, I'm going to let you know here in the page because with these holidays, we don't have clear when we are going to be transmitting or not. But I will let you know here in the page for our next lecture, in which we are going to be talking about transcendental meditation and how to reach the state of meditation known as samadhi or illuminating void through the koans. Okay, so this has been all for today. Thank you very much to all of you. And well, see you the next time. Remember that I'm always available here to help you with any question or any concern that you have. Thank you very much and have a great rest of the day. Ciao, ciao.